David Menzies for Rebel News here in Chestnut Ridge, New York, and I'm standing with Mr. Anthony Mele. He is the head of AMI Global Security. And as you know, folks, we've been down in the New York, New Jersey area for a few days now. We took in the massive solidarity rally in Brooklyn on Sunday. But as Mr. Mele is going to tell us, sometimes what the Jewish community has to do in order to defend themselves and fight back, well, it's not merely a matter of marching and chanting. It's a matter of defending yourself. And we're going to go into his office and have a discussion about that right now. Well, I'm in the village of Spring Valley, New York, not very far away, just 15 minutes away, actually, from the home of Rabbi Rottenberg, who was the one that was victimized by a machete-wielding person that likely meant to carry out a mass massacre just late last month. And I am with Anthony Mele. Anthony Mele is a U.S. Army veteran, highly decorated, and he's gone on to found AMI Global Security. And Mr. Mele, the reason why we're here, of course, is that after this attack took place, the people at the synagogue reached out to you. And I guess this is all about getting you involved in making sure that potential victims, and we know that there's been an incredible spike of anti-Semitic attacks and Jew hatred in New York and New Jersey in the last couple of months. But now the time for just having solidarity marches and feel-good chants and whatnot, it's over. Now is the time about fighting back, arming yourself perhaps, making sure that you are no longer a victim. Can you tell me what involvement you've had in the last several days with Rabbi Rottenberg's synagogue?
Yeah, well, the actual Foshay community is comprised of several synagogues, and I'm a member of this community. It's only 15 minutes from my front door, and so what occurred was just so heinous and shocking that it crosses all lines. So this is beyond religious or political lines. Has to do with humanity, your neighbors, and just as easily as it happened at his front door, it could happen here or across the street from me. So this is something that has to be addressed.
And we know that anti-Semitic attacks in this region are on the rise. Jews, by the way they are dressed, they are obviously being targeted. Law enforcement can't be everywhere all the time. The justice system seems to be regressing so that people arrested for even heinous crimes are getting released on bail, sometimes even without bail. It's almost like catch and release. Your point of view, I imagine, is that the time has come to have the tools in order to fight back because you can't depend on law enforcement and the justice system to protect you.
Well, that's exactly right. Look, self-defense, self-protection, and self-preservation is a human right. It's the law of self-preservation. So that's a human right. We're also protected by the Second Amendment of the Bill of Rights. So yes, it's a logical response that in the event of, especially if your community or people like yourself are being targeted, and it seems to be this to be the trend, then to take proactive measures to protect yourself, and having a firearm is not off the table. Being well trained and prepared how to use it, and as an individual or as a community.
And Mr. Mele, could you inform our viewers who might not be up to snuff on what the firearms laws are in the state of New York? What are you allowed to carry, and can you open and carry weapons?
Well, I'll be very candid and direct with you and your viewers. The gun laws in the state of New York are equal to the Nazi gun laws of 1935. They're that repressive, and they make no logical sense whatsoever except to disarm and unarm the legal public. Now I understand that I'm a federal firearms licensee, so I'm a federal officer when it comes down to issuing firearms. I can issue firearms. I can issue an FBI background check. Of course, I believe in the checks and balances that are required. That said, I mean, common sense stuff, of course, but the kind of laws that New York has imposed were just cosmetic and just for political purposes, and they only neuter the law-abiding. So when you see this kind of repressive gun laws being issued down to the people from Albany, it just makes no sense. They need to be completely repealed, and you can see it doesn't work. It doesn't work. Criminals do not obey gun laws, so that it only dissuaded somebody like the victims of that house. If someone in that house had a firearm and were not programmed and constantly programmed to think that firearms are evil or you're going to have problem from the state and the police if you do have one, a firearm would have made all the difference in that particular situation, as we see around the country.
So, if I can ask you, Mr. Mele, in terms of tangible terms, what can I carry as a New Yorker in terms of, for my personal protection? What kind of firearm am I allowed to carry if, say, I was walking from my house to the synagogue or to a kosher supermarket or what have you?
Well, if you apply for the proper licensing, you can have a concealed carry for a pistol.
Okay.
But it varies county to county, and in New York City, it's completely taboo.
Okay.
So that's out. A long gun is a permit is not required, okay, but and even to have an open carry of it is frowned upon, and depending county where you are, in New York City is taboo. You can't carry it either. So what's the sense of having a fire extinguisher, right? If you're required to lock the fire extinguisher, up, in in a cabinet in the garage, okay. So the thing is that it just makes no sense. The reason why you have a fire extinguisher is just in case of fire. The reason why you have a firearm is that way you're exercising your rights, but it's for the practicality of that it should be ready when you need it.
This is very interesting. I don't know if this is being reported that much, Mr. Mele, but you're suggesting that the reason why he was using this very large machete, it might not have been because he didn't have access to a gun, but he wanted to carry out, I don't know, an ISIS-style execution.
That's exactly right.
Okay.
And it's not just an opinion, it's an observation. The gentleman, I hope he makes it, is in the hospital for
Yes.
a head wound.
Yes.
So he was taking headshots. If you take a headshot with a machete, what are you trying to do? A machete at a headshot can sever a head, can sever it, right? So he was going for headshots, and it's not a far connection to say that he was trying to take heads.
So is Plan B then is this a matter of the Jewish community, especially places like synagogues, hiring trained security? We went to the synagogue that Rabbi Rottenberg presides over.
Right.
There is a large security van with all kinds of monitoring equipment in front of the synagogue. Across the street, there was a state trooper there 24/7. Is this the solution in this so-called new normal that we're living in?
Well, I mean, look, if we want to revert to a police state, that's one thing. But we all know that the state, New York State, or no one else is going to expend the resources, that it takes 24/7. Okay. Frankly, all of those vehicles are there with the TV cameras. Once the TV cameras go, the other things will go. So it's just for show.
Okay.
Okay, and it's not a solution. So what? If a bank robber is going to go rob a bank, and the bank is surrounded by all the vehicles and armed guards and everything else like that on this corner, but the bank across the street or around the corner isn't, which bank is he going to go? So it's a matter of hard target and soft target. They're just going to continue to go to a soft target. And so this community was chosen for its political value and for its media value, because obviously if something happens in this community, Cuomo came all the way down from Albany, okay, just to pay attention to this, but yet in the same county, a woman was killed by an errant driver, and he was released by the Cuomo law, okay, and Cuomo didn't go down and pay respects to that woman, and she's dead. So it's so cynical that it disgusts me. And so the right of the people to keep and bear arms and the right of people to self-defense do not need permission. It's common sense.
So until there's any political will, obviously, to change the gun laws, certainly you're curtailed in what you can do firearms-wise to protect yourself. Mr. Mele, if I was an Orthodox Jew, and it's obvious that from what I wear, what I look like, I'm an Orthodox Jew, and anti-Semitic crimes are on the uprise. So there's an awareness that I could be a target. What would your advice be in terms of what I could tangibly do to bring about more protection? Because certainly we're in a world where I don't think prayer is a 100% blanket. I don't think that's the answer. What, as a security expert, what would you say to me in order to make sure I get home alive?
Yeah. In this particular situation, in this particular community, as many of the community can prepare themselves, get firearms training, acquire a firearm, apply for a pistol permit, take tactical training, assemble as an individual. We're all can legally acquire or carry a firearm. All right, within the law. So within the law, as the laws are, basically harden the target. So at your schools, at your school buses, at your things that would be these kind of targets, okay, try to have someone armed as much as possible. Law enforcement, when law enforcement sees this interview, they're going to lose their mind, and they're going to say that we shouldn't do that. But some law enforcement might.
Why is that, sir?
Well, because they're going to respond and say, oh, they don't want. First of all, the political will is that agenda is that if they had their way, they would eliminate the Second Amendment completely. Don't want any civilians have any firearms whatsoever.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's clear by the laws that they keep trying to pass incrementally. So we're not blind to that. But also, law enforcement, not to denigrate law enforcement, of course. I respect them highly and work with them closely. But what I'm saying is that law enforcement officials are take their marching orders from the political leaders. All right, because that's who hires and fires them. So they're gonna be in comportment with that, and they're gonna make all kind of inferences, saying, oh, you're not trained, you're not this, you're not that, you're not the other. Get trained. But the thing is that just because that people feel uncomfortable if they see someone carrying this and that, or people get upset. So, someone else's emotions do not eliminate my rights.
Yes.
If you don't like what I say because it makes you upset, doesn't mean that you get to take away my First Amendment right of freedom of speech. If you don't like my religion, doesn't mean that I have to hide or change my religion. And if a firearm triggers you to the point that you wet your pants on the side of it, then you have to see a psychiatrist. That doesn't take away my rights. So the Bill of Rights is not contingent upon someone else's emotions.
And what's more, there have been several examples where a citizen, a law-abiding citizen, packing a firearm, has become a hero. And there was the Texas church incident in which 2 people died. It might have been a complete massacre, if not for that man. As I mentioned off camera to you, Mr. Mele, in 2016, I was at the Dral Muhammad contest in Garland, Texas.
Right.
And if not for an officer with the Garland Police Service who was confronted with 2 terrorists with automatic weapons and body armor, miraculously was able to take them out of the equation in what I think was one of the most incredible feats of sharpshooting I've ever seen. So if that hadn't happened, I might not even be here today speaking with you. So why is it we have a political climate in the U.S., a country that has the Second Amendment as part of its Constitution, that is so anti-gun when it comes to the good people having firearms?
Well, I can speculate all day long, and it probably has the answer to that question probably has to do with control and political control, because now you're completely dependent upon the government for your survival, for your protection. So therefore, it's a matter of control. Americans are fiercely independent-minded people, okay, and so therefore our right to have a firearm, protect ourselves with a firearm, should not be purged from the younger generation as if it's a some kind of evil. They keep using attaching verbs to a noun. Assault rifle.
Yes.
Assault is a verb, rifle is a noun. Okay, so what was that? Assault machete. Okay, the man who was there had the presence of mind to defend himself, or was reduced to defend himself and his family with a coffee table,
Yes.
with a piece of furniture. So the Bill of Rights is not the right to keep and bear furniture.
Yes.
Okay, so what are we gonna do? Walk around with coffee tables? So it's ridiculous. All right, it's ridiculous. We're being. I mean to reverse the mental trend that a firearm is an inanimate object, okay, and it only takes on the personality of whose hands it's in. If it's in someone's hand who's receiving deadly force or the threat of deadly force, then it's defensive.
Okay.
And someone else is using it to try and commit a crime or do harm to someone, then it's offensive. So the only way to address an offense is with a defense, and the best defense is a good offense. So it makes zero sense in this conversation to actually tell anyone after something like this that they should opt out of arming themselves. That if an attack happens in their congregation, they should pick up chairs and defend themselves again with furniture. That if their children are going to be on a school bus, okay, then they should just cooperate with the hostage taker. Okay, so everywhere there's a soft target, okay, you can rest assured that there's a planner out there planning on how to do it, and they are more emboldened when they find out that in this community or in this state, in this county, that the likelihood of someone having a firearm to stop them, okay, is going to only embolden them. But if they knew psychologically that the likelihood that this particular community has an increase in the odds of well-trained in tactics and precision firearms, and are willing to have the will to defend themselves, the likelihood of an attack decreases. So I wanted to change. I wanted to convert people to the point of that the lock on their front door is for the perpetrator's protection, not mine.
And indeed, I would say that the stats back you up. If you look at John Lott's book, More Guns, Less Crime, it shows you that in those states where there are more liberal, if you will, gun laws allowing citizens to arm themselves, the crime rates for that kind of crime is down. But moving forward, Mr. Mele, the members of this congregation of Rabbi Rottenberg Synagogue, you've had discussions with them. Are they going to go through all the hoops, as hard as it is in this particular state, to arm themselves, or are they just going to opt for something else? Like, how do you see this synagogue and the members of this synagogue better preparing themselves for, God forbid, if there is another future attack on them?
Well, that's a good question. My advice to they and other clients who come underneath my purview are we call it train the brain. So the first thing that has to be done is there has to be a mental preparation, an intellectual preparation, okay, of course having a plan. A firearm is not the end all and be all either. Okay, it's not a panacea. It's just a logical sense of some. So when the question is asked, well, what do we do if someone comes to the door and shoots at us? The only response is shoot back. Yeah. You can't. What are you gonna say? Pretty please? Or hey, don't you know you're breaking Cuomo's Safe Act law? He's not gonna like it. You see? So logic here is what I know sounds ridiculous, and I'm not trying to make it be funny in a serious situation, but it's just so ludicrous that it's almost comical, right? All right. So therefore, train the brain. Train the brain to be situational awareness, where you are, what's going on. If you see something that doesn't quite look right and stuff, start taking evasive actions to evacuate. Okay, evacuation is a good idea. And if and so if you can run. If you can hide. And if you have to fight, then be well trained and prepared to fight.
Well, Mr. Mele, I really appreciate this. Moving forward, let's hope this particular synagogue and any other synagogue or rabbi's home is not targeted. And I guess we will see in the weeks and months ahead if members of the Jewish community that you've been in touch with in terms of your consulting will take your words to heart and will make sure that they are not lambs to the slaughter to the wolves that are out there.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
It's my fervent hope.
Thank you, Mr. Mele.
Thank you.